Hello again, it's me. I'm upset. Upset why? Because the game theory just came out, like yesterday, as of this recording anyway. And something that irks me is that I feel like this whole mystery as to what's going to happen, what's in the box, all this and that, has been right in front of my face this whole time, and I haven't been able to figure it out until now. Everybody's been fussing. Everybody's been wondering, what's the Bite of 87? What's this? What's that? And I'm like, what's the real most important question that we've had since Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and 3? I'm sure it could have been for you or anybody else some useless question about the Bite of 87, but my question was something towards something in 2 and 3 that there was no answers for, nothing that anybody had any explanation for until now. And that is, who is Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie? Now, I've been waiting for somebody to bring up some stuff that could possibly explain these things for a while, and thanks to the game theory that just came out yesterday, I think that some of it has been explained. I don't know if we have enough information yet, and like anything, this is still all just a theory, but I feel like a lot of this has had answers, and I feel like the stuff in this box, these answers, this mystery, has been things that we had right in front of us, but no one wanted to think anything about, because they were too busy caught up in this drama about this not Bite 87 nonsense, and who's Fredbear? Where's the purple guy at? But before I get into all this stuff and explaining what this means, what all this is about, let me give you a little recap. Let me explain to you what Five Nights at Freddy's 4 story is all about. Flashback. Think back to 1983. There's a Fredbear's Pizzeria, a sister location to the one that we see in the main series of games, the first 3 games. Who is working there? Who's in this location too? Who's probably trying to be in as many locations with innocent children as possible? Purple Guy. We see him. We see concrete evidence in this game that Purple Guy is here, working with the Springlock suits. So we know he's here. And what has he done with Springlock suits before? Kill children. Now, I'm sure some of you might be asking, what does that have to do with anything? Purple Guy kills kids. Yeah, we've seen that happen before. Well, this is a new place, a place we haven't seen any kids killed in, as in we didn't see it. But you know who did? You know who's deathly afraid of yellow animatronics? The kid you play as. Why are you so deathly afraid? Because as it says in the game, you know what happens when they get you. MatPat even suggests in his video, the last game theory that's come out about Five Nights at Freddy's 4, that the kid you play as was someone who witnessed Purple Guy in one of the animatronic Springlock costumes killing another child and stuffing their body into one of the spare suits in the back room. A spare suit that you can still see in the minigames. A spare suit with a tuft of brown hair sticking out of it. And what suit is it? No other than a Spring Bonnie costume, as is obvious and easy to tell due to it not having a bow tie on it like all the Fredbears do. Then, after 5 days of being in a place on and off that you are deathly afraid of due to you seeing someone else already die in it, your brother and his idiot friends take you up there to Fredbear's munching mouth itself, and your tears crunching into his head makes a Springlock malfunction, crush your head, and kill you. Game over. No nightmare, no nonsense, no being in a coma because you're the Bite 87, none of that ridiculous nonsense. You are gone. You are fading from life. And what do you see? You see the last light in the eyes that you could possibly ever see. The Fredbear plush that's been talking to you this entire game. Plushes do not talk unless they have batteries. And this one can teleport. We've seen it. So this suggests that this sucker is somehow possessed or somehow controlled by some force that isn't normal. Now, this is just a theory, this is just an idea, but posit for just a second that it could possibly be the spirit of the kid that you witnessed die earlier on coming back to you as the last person that ever saw them alive. A spirit of a dead child that is being kind to you, taking care of you, being your friend in a state of isolation due to you being deathly afraid of the same circumstances happening to you. Why? Because your birthday in 5 days is taking you to the same place where you just saw a little boy die. And that little boy is trying to help you not be afraid of the place. But then what happens? Your idiot brother and his friends push you up into the mouth of a Fredbear animatronic, and your crying tears make the Springlocks malfunction and it crunches down on your head, killing you. The next thing we see, the last thing we see of this child's consciousness is him slipping away with all his animatronics plushy friends, fading away into the distance, and the last words he's seeing is the Fredbear plush saying that I will fix you, I will put you back together. Why is this important? Why is this relevant? Well, because for the longest time forever, we've had so many questions as to who the heck Purple Bonnie / Shadow Bonnie and Purple Freddy / Shadow Freddy have been in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and 3. We see them. They appear. They affect you. They can kill you. But what do they do? What are they there for? in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Both of these characters help you uncover the mystery. Shadow Bonnie flies around in the glitched up minigame through different locations, showing you all kinds of stuff, trying to help you help save the children, help give them cake. And what does Shadow Freddy do? This character that is pretty enigmatic to begin with, they appear and lead these possessed animatronics of these 5 or 4 children. We don't see Golden Freddy move. We see these 4 animatronics leave the stage and the Pirate's Cove or whatever. We see them leave following this Purple Freddy to a room that they would not be able to see otherwise. Why would they be led there by anyone? Purple Guy wouldn't want to lead them there. He's trying to disassemble them. He knows that that's a safe place to disassemble them from, but we don't see this Purple Freddy show up in there as if it was piloted by him. Now, that would make sense if perhaps this Purple Freddy wasn't something that was on his side to begin with, which leads me to the point that I want to make. In the files for Five Nights at Freddy's 4, we see something about Nightmare that is very, very significant, and no one has been able to figure out what it's supposed to mean. Except, I think, me, maybe, right now. The folder in which the Nightmare name card is placed inside of the game files for Five Nights at Freddy's 4, we do not see the folder called Nightmare at all. We see it called Shadow Freddy, a name that could have possibly been coined in the same way that Golden Freddy's has, by the fans. But we see this folder with these things that should not be connected at all, unless they have been, and that was the intention this entire time. Back in MatPat's Five Nights at Freddy's 3 theory that we watched, he talked about how he thought that the Purple Freddy and Purple Bonnie that showed up in the 3rd game were representations of possibly people who were workers at the sister locations that had the spring lock failures, and that they were somehow there to help, which didn't make any sense at all at the time. That idea was ridiculous, and I'm sure he's actually gone on to come up with more ideas. But as Scott said about MatPat, he's basically nailed almost everything down up until the 4th game came out, and it's been a huge mystery. But maybe that's because people have been so busy throwing away theories and trying to figure out what the Bitey 87 is supposed to mean that they dropped the stuff that was right in front of their faces. Try this idea on for size. Perhaps the Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie that we see in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and 3 are not someone who was an employee at the sister location, but rather the victims who died in the sister location who are coming over to the main locations that we play in. Why could this be a thing? Well, because think about the plot to basically the entire series. We've had a story about dead kids who've been murdered by a serial killer and their eventual one-uppings against that killer as they chase after them for their own revenge slash justice slash whatever you want to call it. That's been the plot to these games. The first 2-3 games, that's been what's happened. These kids have somehow come back. They've been attacking security guards because they've been wanting to see if that's the person who killed them. That's the reason you would die. And much like how probably the puppet traveled over from Fredbear's Family Diner to the pizzerias that came later, these kids who died in his sister location probably wanted as much vengeance for the Purple Guy as anybody else. What does this end up looking like? Well, it looks like you playing Five Nights at Freddy's 2, doing your own business, whatever that may be, and seeing a Shadow Bonnie appear in your room, your lights flickering, and then all of a sudden your game crashing, with no answers as to what's going on, where this thing is, what its backstory is, and who it's supposed to be. You know what these other kids are supposed to be. You know about the classic 5. You know about Golden Freddy at this point. But what about this Purple Freddy, this Purple Bonnie that are showing up? Or the Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie, as people call them. Well, it would make perfect sense if they were someone who was following after Purple Guy too, trying to find a security guard. And maybe they were a bit out of place there, but they were not out of place for what they were trying to do. I'm sure some people are wondering, how did you get to that conclusion? Where is this coming from? Well, consider the following. What characters are we missing? What characters do we not have a kid accounted for or something to account for their existence? Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie. What things do we see kids inside of in Five Nights at Freddy's 4? We see what appears to be a Spring Bonnie animatronic body with no head attached to it with a tuft of brown hair sticking out. What else do we see? We see a kid who's deathly afraid of these yellow animatronic costumes being pushed up on stage and having his head crushed in and dying by the grips and bite of a Fredbear costume. And what happens after that? They fade to black. And the next thing you get is Nightmare Mode. Nightmare Mode with the titular Nightmare as its focal point. A new, terrifying nightmare animatronic that seemed to only come into existence after this kid had passed on. And what do we see? What traits did this animatronic show? Well, we see a mysteriously, mostly translucent body. We see a character shrouded in darkness. And we see what looks like a human brain inside his head. But what we need to remember and acknowledge is that these nightmare characters are nightmare versions of characters that don't look that scary. Nightmare Freddy looks like Freddy, but scary. Same goes for Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, even Fredbear. But Nightmare itself looks like Fredbear. Looks like Nightmare Fredbear, except dark. Now, who also looks like Golden Freddy? A character that I've stated in another video looks a lot like Fredbear. None other than Shadow Freddy, a character that we see in the same position as Golden Freddy, doing similar things as Golden Freddy, and appearing in Five Nights at Freddy's 3 to lead our beloved possessed animatronic children to their technological liberation at the hands of Purple Guy disassembling them and setting their souls free. Now, why would anybody do that? Now, I could understand Purple Guy wanting to disassemble them to cover up the evidence or something, but it could also make sense if someone knew that there were souls trapped in there that needed to get them out. I feel like a lot of this is just rambling. I want to make sure that my idea is understood. So many people comment on YouTube and Twitter and all these forums and the wiki and stuff, and they go through all this stuff trying to say their theory. Well, listen up, YouTube and everybody else who wants to hear. This is my theory. My theory is that you, the person you play in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, is the child that eventually becomes Shadow Freddy, the character who would later on be the liberation for the other 4 and 5 animatronics in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This all to try and find justice for the person that you saw get killed when you were alive, when you were a child, the only known victim of Purple Guy in this sister location. The dead child of the sister location who in the form of a Fredbear plush tried to take care of you until your demise. The one who took the form of Shadow Bonnie. Shadow Bonnie literally being a shadow of the spring body animatronic that kid was stuffed into when they died. This is why when you see Nightmare in Nightmare mode in 2020 mode, they look like they're see-through. They look like they're becoming a thing. That's why you can see the brain inside their head, because this is what that Fredbear plush meant. This is what they meant when they said they'll put you back together. They will fix you. They will make you something that can finally do what needed to be done. You play in Five Nights at Freddy's 4 as the little boy who would eventually become the shadow of Fredbear. The shadow of Freddy that would later on help save and rescue the spirits of the children that have been forever trapped in these animatronic costumes at the plight of the Purple Guy. This is based on the mini-games. This is based on the gameplay we see. This is based on Nightmare's appearance when we see them appear in their Nightmare mode, in their 2020 mode. This is based on the stuff that we see in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and 3, when they show up, how they behave. But I don't want anyone to think that this is the end-all be-all. This is just a theory. I hope, though, that when that box finally gets opened up, whenever that is, I hope that something right comes out of it, and I hope that something right has something to do with me.